Well, if we can go and get started. Mr. Chairman, we need to get started. I apologize to y'all for running a little late. I try to start these things on time, but the room was occupied, and we've been tangled up trying to get some different versions fixed. Mr. Ellis, would you say a prayer for this crowd, please, sir?
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for the beautiful day and the opportunity to come and face the challenges that we have laid out before us. We ask for your guidance and give us the wisdom to make the decisions that would be pleasing to you. We ask you to forgive us of our sins, both sins of commission and sins of omission, and empower us to forgive those who we know we must that have sinned against us. And dear Lord, we pray that you will protect the men and women that today are placing their lives in harm's way, that we might enjoy the freedoms of this great nation. All this we pray in thy holy name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate y'all coming today. We had all this scheduled last week, and the good Lord and Mother Nature showed us who's really in charge. So, and now, if you look outside today, I'm wondering why in the world we're sitting in this building and it's 70 degrees, but that's the way things work. We have a couple of announcements, and then we got a bill and an appointment, and then we're going to have a hearing on 718. Miss Patty, you had an announcement. Make that mic work if it would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I just want to quickly announce that Fort Valley State University, which is in my district, and Representative Dick and I work together with Fort Valley State. Their day at the Capitol has been changed from February 12th to March 14th. But the big event, April 14th, is the Eggs and Issues breakfast down at Fort Valley State. So you will be receiving a Save the Date card, and our very own Chairman McCall will be presenting at that breakfast on April 14th. So look forward to getting that Save the Date card. Thank you.
That'll quell some of the attendance if you go talking about I had to do something. They got to the bottom of the barrel on that one. There is a sign-up sheet if you want to speak on any bill. Most of y'all probably, I think, want to talk about 718. But I would appreciate if you would sign your names on this clipboard here so we can keep up and get an idea of what kind of time limits we may need to put on it. Those of you that never have been to our ag committee, we kind of laid back. We don't do a bunch of lawyering in here, but we want to hear from everybody that's interested in any of these subjects. First thing we have is House Bill 778. Representative Pizzo, if you come up here and make sure that mic's on.
It is on. And I apologize that I did not bring Representative Roberts an Egg McMuffin this morning. Well, he actually asked me to bring Egg McMuffins for everyone, but I got here early, and I did not want to give you cold food, so I will rectify that next time.
All right. Everybody needs to know that we own LC 212461S. Is that the right one, John?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time. Today I'm bringing before you House Bill 778. The long and short of it is this bill addresses liability for donations to nonprofits. I'm going to give you a 30-second background. In 1996, the Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act was passed, and it made it easier to donate food by allowing the donor liability only in cases of gross negligence. When the bill was allowed to sunset, some charities reported that food donations reduced by over 50%. A good example of this is the Ronald McDonald House. They provide food and shelter to families of sick children while they're in the hospital. Meals at places like the Ronald McDonald House are donated by families, cooked in their own private residence, refrigerated, and brought to the house for consumption. So it's reheated and then served to families for lunch or dinner. Under the current letter of the law, all food donated to Ronald McDonald Houses must be cooked in a commercial kitchen. Now, if anybody has ever cooked in somebody else's kitchen, it's a hassle. So what basically people are having to do, if they follow the letter of the law, is to gather up all their cooking utensils, gather up all their ingredients, salt, pepper, paprika, whatever have you, and bring it to the Ronald McDonald House or another commercial kitchen, if they happen to have access to a commercial kitchen, cook it there, and then store it on site. On site. This bill goes back to minimizing the liability of the nonprofits. Again, except for in cases of gross negligence. If you refer to LC 212461S, lines 23 and 24 are GMA's language to protect private property owners, and it also specifies that that is not to be. It does not apply to soup kitchens. Does anyone have any questions?
Pedro, anybody have any questions? I would like to thank Representative Epps and Representative Pizzo for working with the Department of Community Health to get all this language and not duplicate what we did last year with Bubba's bill. No question. I entertain a motion then. Is there a second? Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One of the things that we have to do according to commission rules is the House and the Senate Ag Committees get an appointment to several different commodity commissions. And one of those appointments is to the Seed Development Commission. We have to do it in even-numbered years, so the appointment lasts for 2 years. Our appointment previously has been Zippy Duval, who is president of Georgia Farm Bureau, and I would like to reappoint him. And I talked to everybody on the committee, and they don't have a problem. Not too bad, will you? But if I could get a motion. All in favor of reappointing Zippy to the Seed Development Commission, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. Zippy, 2 seconds if you want to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
All right, thank you. Thank you. How was traffic on I-20 this morning?
It was tough. Sorry I missed our meeting.
That's right. Next thing on the agenda is a hearing on House Bill 718. Representative Turner. And to all of y'all that want to talk on this thing, you're going to be on TV. These things are filmed. And
See you bye.
Yeah.
I did not realize cameras would be involved, and I've suddenly gotten shy. Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you this morning for this opportunity to bring before you House Bill 718. I'm offering a committee substitute after working with the Chairman McCall. The LC number is LC 400562S. This is I'm proud to say, an exciting moment for me because I'm bringing a bipartisan bill before this committee that is an effort to restore some level of food freedom by legalizing the sale of raw milk for human consumption in Georgia. The bill does essentially 2 things. It makes it legal to buy raw milk for human consumption and requires a label that it is ungraded raw milk. That's essentially what the bill does. And before I get started too much further, I want to kind of highlight the theme of my testimony this morning, which is at a certain point we have to decide if we're willing to trust the consumer to make the right decisions for themselves. This issue came before me and to my attention over the summer while I was attending an event in Athens. And outside that event, there was a group of protesters that had gathered to sell and consume milk. Seems simple enough, but how could milk be illegal? What's the protest about? The milk was raw, and it was unlabeled, and for 25 cents I purchased and consumed raw milk and the spirit of civil disobedience. So I began researching the issue, and what I found is that we've created a black market for milk in Georgia. I've heard stories of farmers treating milk much like they would moonshine, dropping their product at a location to be picked up by their customer at some later time, just so that there would be no exchange. I've heard that since raw milk is legal for sale in South Carolina, that we have Georgians that will cross the border, purchase milk, and bring it back home for their own consumption. Some believe that that may be a violation of federal law. So why would people take these risks and break the law? Is there some benefit? Well, some believe that there's a great deal of health benefit associated with drinking raw milk. I provided to you in these packets that every member should have now written testimony from Dr. Ted Beals, MD, a pathologist that has worked with the University of Michigan Department of Pathology, served as a pathologist for the VA Medical Center in Ann Arbor, and as Director of Pathology for the Department of Veterans Affairs in Health Administration. In that written testimony, Dr. Beals points out that there is research studies in Europe that suggest a link between the consumption of raw milk and the prevention of asthma in children. Some folks talk about healthy bacteria. Some folks say that lactose intolerant individuals have reported being able to drink raw milk just fine. But the bottom line for a lot of folks is that raw milk simply just tastes better. At a certain point, we have to decide if we are willing to trust the consumer to make the right choices for themselves. And there are a lot of folks that disagree with this science and personal opinion, and they will tell you about health risks associated with raw milk in the form of foodborne illnesses, and that risk is just too great. You may hear today that there is a consumer protection issue. You may hear the Department of Agriculture or others tell you that their mission is to provide a safe product for the consumer. But I want to add just one more part to that sentence and that thought process. Anytime you hear someone say that they are protecting the consumer by preventing the sale of raw milk, I'd ask you to do me a favor and complete that sentence by adding this to it. From themselves, by making them criminals for drinking milk. Again, by preventing the sale of raw milk, we are protecting the consumer from themselves by making them criminals for drinking milk. Another argument I've heard is that foodborne illness associated with milk should just shut down the whole dairy industry should it happen. I'm providing you with a partial list, also in the packet, some 7 pages of foodborne illnesses in the United States dating back to 1963, when 2 women died from botulism ingested from canned tuna. Did people stop eating tuna? No. In 1985, the CDC recorded that the largest number of food poisoning deaths in American history, when 52 people died as a result of eating queso blanco in Southern California. Of those deaths, there were 19 stillbirths. 10 infants died. Queso is still served in restaurants and homes all across America. People didn't stop eating it. In 2003, the largest hepatitis A outbreak recorded in American history occurred when there were more than 660 people that became infected and died, and some died, as a result of eating green onions at Chi-Chi's restaurants. Did people stop eating green onions? No. And I do not have to tell you all about peanuts and salmonella, but people are still eating peanuts and peanut butter. The standard for food safety, if the standard for food safety is to not allow the sale of food because it could make you sick, then we might as well ban all foods. All foods can make you sick. At a certain point, we have to decide if the consumer can make their own right choices. The Department of Agriculture has a mission to make sure that a safe product is available to the consumer, and I completely support that. I will argue that since we are not changing any requirements for grade A pasteurized milk, that the Department of Ag will continue to meet its mission. It will continue to regulate the dairy industry and provide a competing product that they can stand behind as high quality. We aren't changing that. At a certain point, we have to decide if we're willing to trust the consumer to make the right choices for themselves. And for me, this is simply a liberty issue. People should be free to make their own food choices. I certainly don't think Georgia benefits from protecting her citizens from themselves by making them criminals for drinking milk. I know there are a lot of folks here that want to speak this morning, so I'm going to cut my comments short, and I'll open myself up to questions if there are any from the committee.
Thank you, Representative Turner. Does anybody have any questions at this time for the author? All right. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Ms. Patty.
I just need a better understanding of What is it that you're saying, that they would be considered criminals if they drink the milk? I don't quite understand.
So today in Georgia, it is against the law to sell raw milk for human consumption. So we're trying to correct that so that it could be sold for human consumption.
Rick, your thing ain't working.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We have about 10 people that have signed up to speak one way or the other. I can read some of the names and tell which side you're on, but at the risk of looking like I'm one way or the other, I'm just going to go straight down the list as it's signed up. At this time, if Marcia Thadson, please, would come. Tell us, if y'all don't mind, tell us who you are and who you represent, and if you represent yourself, that's great.
Okay, my name is Marcia Thadison. I'm part of the Weston Price Foundation here in Atlanta. Also have a small business called Yesterday's Kitchen for Today. And basically my business is to kind of educate us to go back to preparing foods like our grandparents did. I'm a grandma, and I had some grandchildren with some health issues, and we had to change how we were eating, from processed food to many other foods. So I became educated on what was in our food and where was the healthy foods. That led me to raw milk and learning how to make my own homemade kefir, which has beneficially helped so much of my children and even my neighbors' kids with acne, with stomach problems. And we want to be able to have that choice as a mom or grandma to go in the kitchen and pull out the natural things to help our kids to be healthy and safe. And I believe raw milk is one of those products.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody have any questions?
Where you getting your raw milk now?
I sometimes get my raw milk from local farmers around here, and as he says, you just purchase it. And I don't even like milk. As a kid, I didn't like milk, but as I've gotten older and learned how to go back to the natural things, it's great. It's fantastic.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, ma'am, for coming. The correct answer might ought to be from South Carolina. Sandra Walker. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. I'm here representing myself.
That's good.
I am one of those consumers that Scott Turner was talking about. I'm also a wife and a mother, and one of my most important jobs as a wife and a mother is to provide healthy, nutrient-rich food for my family. I take my responsibility very seriously and have gone to great lengths to find the best food possible for them. I could talk to you today about the health benefits of raw dairy, as I have personally experienced a positive impact myself and in my family's health since we began consuming raw milk over 4 years ago. I would like to instead talk about the safety of raw milk. It seems the general public and safety officials in particular consider raw milk to be a high-risk food. It is true there was a time in recent history when many people were sickened and some even died from drinking contaminated raw milk. Pasteurization was employed at that time to render contaminated milk safe to drink, which I think we can all agree has saved countless lives. But pasteurization is not the only way to ensure that milk is safe to drink. Through advancements in medicine and technology, we now have a better understanding of how to prevent illness through proper livestock management and sanitary handling of milk and milking equipment. When raw milk is produced under the proper conditions, it is safe. It is as safe as, or some may argue, possibly safer than pasteurized processed milk products. Other states in the U.S. have recognized this and allow the sale of raw milk directly to consumers. As of July 2013, retail sales were legal in 11 states. On-farm sales are legal in 18 states, herd shares are legal in 8 states, and pet food sales are legal in 6 states. And I have a few copies of this if y'all would like some
How about
copies.
just passing that around?
Alright.
So they
I think I have 10 of each, so I'm
Okay.
that. And also this goes into the detail of the law for each state. As you are probably aware, Georgia allows the sale of raw milk under a pet food license. Currently, there are around 30 licensed producers of pet milk in the state, and they are doing very well. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of pet milk are sold each year, and not all of that milk is going to pets. Yet we have not had a single death reported due to the consumption of raw milk in the U.S. in over 10 years. Many other countries allow the sale of raw milk as well. In fact, an online news article was published this past weekend highlighting a new trend in Europe, raw milk vending machines. Contrary to what the CDC and the FDA have been telling us for years, when you look at the actual data, raw milk consumption is no more risky than consuming pasteurized dairy products, and the number of foodborne illnesses reported from raw dairy products is not significantly different in states where the retail sale of milk is legal. I have here a response to the CDC's press release issued in February 2012, highlighting a study of disease outbreaks associated with non-pasteurized dairy products. This response is written by the Weston A. Price Foundation, a nonprofit educational organization. They took the time to analyze the data used in that 2012 CDC report, and they came to a different conclusion based on the same data. For example, during the 14-year period covered in the study, there was an average of 315 illnesses a year from dairy products. Of those, only 112 illnesses were attributed to raw dairy products. The other 203 were associated with pasteurized dairy products. In comparison, there are almost 24,000 foodborne illnesses reported to the CDC each year. Whether pasteurized or not, dairy products are simply not a high-risk food. They account for only around 1% of all reported foodborne illness. Another document I have to share with you is a rebuttal to the testimony of John Sheehan, Director of Plant and Dairy Food Safety for the FDA. This is a 27-page document, so I don't have one for each of you. But I do have one copy that you can keep. I don't know if you want to pass it to the chairman. And just a few highlights. Data from the U.S. government websites and government-sanctioned reports on foodborne illness show that the risk of contracting foodborne illness by consuming raw milk is much smaller than the risk of becoming ill from other foods. A 2007 CDC FoodNet survey found that 3.04% of the population consumes raw milk. That's 9.4 million people based on the 2010 census. This number may in fact be larger now as raw milk is growing in popularity. For example, sales of raw milk increased 25% in California in 2010, while the sales of pasteurized milk declined 3%. Dr. Ted Beals, as mentioned earlier, a physician and board-certified pathologist, also crunched some numbers. He compiled published reports from illnesses attributed to raw milk from 1999 to 2010, and during that 11-year period, illnesses attributed to raw milk averaged 42 per year. With at least 9.4 million people consuming raw milk, the rate of illness from raw milk is 0.00044%. Hardly a basis for calling raw milk risky. The rate of illness from all foods is around 16%. Thus, one is at least 35,000 times more likely to contract illness from other foods than from raw milk. There have been no deaths attributed to fluid raw milk in over 10 years. However, there have been 2 deaths during that time related to illegally produced raw cheeses. Pasteurized milk killed dozens of people during the 1980s, and more recently, 3 people in Massachusetts. Pasteurized mother's milk killed 4 infants in 2003. Pasteurized cheese killed 7 people in Europe in 2009. Recently, we have also seen deaths from cantaloupe, spinach, lunch meat, red peppers, and peanuts. Through my endeavors to find local food sources of nutritious whole foods for my family, I have had the pleasure of meeting many of the pet milk producers around North Georgia and personally touring most of their farms and milking parlors. These are truly small family farms with just a small number of animals. I've asked them what they think about this bill, and not a single one is in support of it. In fact, I think they are a little mad at me right now for talking to you. They like things the way they are. Anyone in the state of Georgia who wishes to consume raw milk has access to it in the form of pet milk. It is legal for the farmers to sell, provided it is labeled properly, and there is no law preventing people from consuming pet milk. The other option is to drive to South Carolina, where the retail sale of raw milk is legal. In either of these cases, the consumer has to go to great lengths to find a reputable farmer that they trust, which I personally think is a good thing. I wish more people would take responsibility for their food choices and not place their trust completely in the hands of government. I believe drinking raw milk is safe, and I support anyone that wishes to do so. I do not support this bill as it is written. My greatest fear, and the fear of our local small farmers, that is, if this bill is passed, it will open the door to excessive regulation tailored to larger farms and will ultimately put these small farmers out of business. If there was a way to ensure that our small, local pet milk producers could continue operating they have been for years, without any illnesses, I might add, then I am all for it. Perhaps raw milk should be sold in retail stores. Perhaps raw milk sold in retail stores where the consumer is not buying directly from the farmer should be more strictly regulated than on-farm sales. Unfortunately, this bill, as it is written, does not spell any of that out. It is left to the Georgia Department of Agriculture to set the licensing regulations, and frankly, I don't trust them to do what is in the best interest of small farmers. Please do not give them the opportunity to take more control than is necessary. Many of us have worked hard to build a relationship with a small farmer that we know and trust. Please do not take that away from us.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody got any questions? Rick?
Thank you, ma'am. So, summarizing that real quick.
Sorry that went so long.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Does not have undue burden in order to sell it.
this might not be the witness to answer my question, but this pet food area of milk, I've never heard of that. Can somebody tell me a little bit? Is what that is? How they is this a way to get around the law now? Or?
All right, thank you, ma'am. Miss Cindy Marr. I would ask that we try not to repeat maybe what may have been said. I don't want to put a time limit on folks, but we got to be out of this room in a little while. So, yeah, fix your mic, please, ma'am. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, and also thank you, Representative Turner, for bringing this to everybody's attention. My name is Cindy Morrow, and I'm a mother of 4 daughters, grandmother to 8, and I'm also a chapter leader for the Weston Price in Woodstock, Georgia. What brings me here is as a consumer, because in every area of my food choices, I try to eat food as close as possible to the way that it was created. I'm not sure, honestly, whether I support this bill or not. There's a lot of things that appeal to me, making it more available and legitimizing it in the eyes of the public and in the legislature. But I've talked also, like Sandra, I won't repeat, but I've talked to the farmer that I get my milk for my pets from. And I've spoken and had emails with other farmers, and none of them support it. And I have to ask, if I'm concerned about the health of my pets and wanting to continue to buy this quality product, and the producers don't support this bill, I have to wonder why. And I think she touched on it, I won't repeat, but she touched on a basic, and this is really sad, I think you would agree that as a consumer and as a citizen, I honestly don't trust the ag department, the big government, to do what is in the best interest of the smaller. Now, I understand there's politics and stuff involved, but I'm not involved in that world. And every day I make decisions. I'm at this intersection of what's legal, the law of the land, and what choice I have to make today. And that's where I am at. You know, I'm not out here like you guys are on the front line making the laws and the regulations. I guess I'm a little leery when someone says, even if they're so well intentioned like Representative Turner, that I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Because right now, the way it is I have a farmer, he has a gallon of milk that I want to buy. I buy it, I walk away, he's happy, I'm happy. How will this bill improve on that transactions from me? Now, I know that's very self-centered. You know, I'm just talking about me and my family, but when we all break it down and we go home at night, that's what we do. We go home to our family, we make decisions that we can live with for our family. Sandra really covered it all. We're friends, and I agree with everything she said. She gave you a very, very good breakdown of the science and the research behind it that's been done, and honestly, I don't know what to say. I don't know if I support or don't support this bill. So that's all I wanted to say, is that I know it's a difficult decision, and you guys have a lot of people that are giving you back and forth. I guess if I was going to vote on it, and I would also encourage you guys to vote on it today if that's even possible, because I know how these things kind of get. But I think if I was going to vote on it today, if I was in your shoes, I would probably, unless it was nailed down that there's no way that the Ag Department could even get near this as far as regulation, I would have to vote against it. So that's it.
Have you met the commissioner?
Have I met? Gary Black? Have I met him? I don't, no. Is it? Oh, no, yeah, oh, no. It's not a personal, I would love to meet him. You know, one of the things about coming here that's very interesting is getting to see y'all's interaction, because when we're in our homes and in our communities, we don't see this, and it warms my heart to see you guys having a good time, and it's not super super heavy, and it's good to see. So thank you.
Does anybody got Robert?
I got a question. I'm a producer. I don't produce milk. I produce fruit. But I guess my question here is, what level of protection or safety do you want when you go purchase your food, and who do you look to provide that level of safety?
That's an awesome question. If I buy a gallon of raw milk, or if I buy a chicken from a local producer, and something is off about that, if it makes my family sick, as soon as I'm recovered, I'm in my car, and I am boots on the ground at that farm, and I am face to face with that person who made that. Now, aren't we lucky that we can do that? I mean, I'm not in a huge city. I'm in Woodstock, so Ball Ground, or wherever I'm getting my pastured produce or pastured meat and milk and dairy. I can go walk the grounds. I can go look at their hen house. Or I can see it with my own eyes. And I'm gonna say, what's going on here? Why did this make me sick? And
So that's happened?
no, it hasn't happened. But you were asking who I want. I'm the one I want in charge of that. That's what I'm saying.
Anybody else? I want to commend you on your test, but you so long. And I think when you raise the question, is what's wrong with what we have now?
I've never done this before, so that's encouraging.
Thank you, ma'am. Glad you got to meet the commission.
Thank you.
I think it's Iris Peeler, or is it which is it, an R or a V? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. I'm glad we didn't meet last week. I was busy getting cows inside out of the sleet, feeding hay and feeding grain to get the energy needs they needed. And I was glad I didn't have to come to Atlanta for this public hearing, and today's travel was much better. I allowed for 3 hours to drive an hour and a half, and I made it in plenty of time. Good morning. My name is Iris Peeler. I am a Georgia resident, a fourth-generation dairy farmer, a lifelong consumer of raw milk. I am a member of Georgia Farm Bureau, and I'm currently serving on the board for the Georgia Milk Producers. I stand in the middle. I'm going to be someone unique today that you hear from, that I'm dead set in the middle of what we're trying to do here. Today I would like to encourage our state officials to pursue legislation that would legalize the sale of raw milk to consumers. I believe American consumers do have the right to choose the food products they want to consume. However, food products should be properly labeled and contain disclaimers that the product is raw, and a reminder that consuming raw products can cause illness. I believe raw milk should be sold for human consumption and should be produced and bottled using best management practices with inspections and testing from state officials. Milk is one of the only agriculture products that cannot be legally consumed throughout the 50 states in its raw form. I believe our understanding of dairy cattle nutrition, we can harvest milk from healthy cows using the advancements in equipment, technologies, sanitation procedures, and product cooling that was not available when milk pasteurization was implemented in the early 1900s. Least we not forget our history lesson and repeat lessons learned from our forefathers regarding tuberculosis, brucellosis, cow nutrition, sanitation, and refrigeration. The ways of the past are not the ways of the future, and I firmly believe that grade A dairies can allow consumers to consume their products with limited health risk. I believe the state of South Carolina successfully legalized the sale of raw milk, but most importantly, implemented a gold standard with the associated regulations, and I have a copy of those for Representative Turner today. In closing, I am in favor of legislation that would legalize the sale of raw milk. I feel it's vital to the sustainability of the law and the regulations that raw milk production and sales are subject to proper licensing and compliance procedures. When I was preparing my points today, I talked to our herd veterinarian yesterday, and he looked at me in the eye and he said, "Iris, do you believe that consuming raw milk is healthier than consuming pasteurized milk?" And I thought for a minute, because he doesn't lead you with what he says. I didn't know what side of the fence he was on. And I said, "Doc, I've consumed it my whole life, and I'm healthy. The only time I go to the doctor is for regular checkups every year. Is it my genetics? Probably. I'm told I come from tough stock. Is it my environment, my stress level? Probably some of that can be contributed to that. But my mother taught me to eat well and eat natural, and I believe that my diet also contributes to my health." I thank you for your time and would entertain any questions.
Rick? You got one, Ed? Okay.
You trust differentiate if someone gets sick of eating raw milk and them not report it as someone just sick from milk.
Do I trust the media? No. I think y'all know that too.
Yeah, you're talking about in some ways advocating selling raw milk and having properly labeled, is that on the farm, or do you think it should be in a retail outlet? I mean, because once are you looking at the process of getting it from the farm and the inspection process, and where do you see that best happening?
I think each state, luckily, can decide where they want to go with this. In the state of South Carolina, they are able to bottle on farm and sell in retail outlets. I do believe that that is a safe method for consuming milk. My family has a farm in South Carolina and markets 75% of our milk directly to the consumer raw. We have two extreme customers, one that needs it to be financially feasible to consume raw milk, and some that tell me they'll pay $20 a gallon. They tell my father to increase the price, and he says, "No, my family's making a decent living at what we're doing, and he does not want raw milk to become the wealthy and the poor."
So you think it's better in a retail outlet? Is that what I'm gathering?
I'm not going to say it's better in the retail outlet. I believe that what's done on the farm dictates where it's safe to go. Okay. Grade A dairies can put milk in the retail outlet.
So do you see, I mean, you're involved in it, do you see what Ms. Morrow wanted, a more unregulated arm's length transaction and a more regulated on your type of business, selling it into a more retail farmer's market, grocery store situation? We have both of them.
Yes.
Is that
I can see both sides of the equation. I feel like the consumers who want the arm's length transaction is fearful that regulation is going to be such that that guy can't be in business anymore. I'm involved with two herds management. One milks 25 cows. They're grade A, and they're able to do it. One milks 140 cows. They're grade A, and they're able to do it. I believe that a small operation can undergo those regulations and be financially successful.
And you're going to provide, are you seeing small producers able to compete on raw milk in South Carolina? I think that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. Maybe trying.
What's your definition of small?
Even some we talked to, a few cows. I mean, will that put the 2 or 5 cow person out of business?
Some of the ladies you've heard from I've actually talked to because I try to understand both sides of what's going on. Maybe we look at pet food only. You can only sell so much milk on farm. Then you have grade A dairies that are able to be in the retail outlet that meet grade A regulations and can sell raw milk in the grade A market. Maybe there's 2 environments that we allow raw milk to be sold in.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Where is an hour and a half from here?
Rome, Georgia.
Okay.
I always think she trusts here.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Brian Tola.
Mr. Chairman, I know there's some dairymen that are here that they take a lot of their time to be away from their farm. I'd like to yield my time so they can speak. If there's time for the area, I'd like to speak.
Smart lobby. Everett Williams.
Good morning. Appreciate
morning,
y'all
sir.
letting me speak to you. I'm Everett Williams. I'm president of Georgia Milk Producers, which is a trade association. It's producer funded. It's a nonprofit, and we represent all 240 dairy farms in the state of Georgia. I'm also a member of a milk marketing co-op, and I'm from Madison, Georgia. I dairy farm myself. I have a large dairy. I made a lot of investment in it. I've been in the dairy business all my life. I devote a tremendous amount of time to the dairy industry. Our group is pretty much against the sale of raw milk because of the health hazards and possibly the economic consequences. Basically, pasteurization started because it was a need. Milk can harbor organisms that make people sick. If you pasteurize it, you take the risk out great. You can look at CDC and all their studies. Raw milk is more dangerous to drink than pasteurized milk. It's just a fact. I mean, if you look through all the data, it is. Okay. The bottom line is, if it's a outbreak, somebody gets sick, nobody's going to differentiate whether it's raw or whole milk that goes through normal channels. I'm probably one of the few people in the room. I worked for a man that got sick drinking raw milk. He liked to die before the antibiotics took care of it. And he was a strong, healthy individual when he gets sick. And the more people that drink raw milk, the more people will be at risk with that. As far as I have one of the highest producing herds in the state. I think I'm as good a cow person as it is in the state of Georgia. And you cannot, contrary to what a lot of folks think, you cannot go out on an operation and look at a cow and really determine whether she might be shedding something that's harmful to the public. You also can't tell whether something accidentally drops in that milk that contaminates it, and your pasteurization takes care of that. Let's see what else. That's what you get when you speak off the cuff. but basically, even though folks are going to continue to drink milk when somebody gets sick, but the damage that's done when it happens affects all the dairy farms in the state, and it's going to be a financial loss. And that's what our trade association is probably concerned about. I have a child that has serious health issues. I've seen her on a ventilator. And some of these kids, they're the ones that are going to be affected. The parents may make the decision, but the child is one going to suffer consequences when she gets sick, and that person gets sick. And to take that, to go back is a step backwards in the safety of our children, in my opinion. Have any questions?
Mr. Everett, I've been by your farm and I've seen it. It's like it's always clean and great farm. And do you know how much you spend on an annual basis to make sure that your product is safe?
I spend $5,000 to $6,000 a month just on chemicals, washing the pipeline and sanitizing it.
Okay.
And you know, I'm fortunate. I got enough cows that I can afford to do that. But when, unfortunately, When you get 1 or 2 cows, how is that person going to buy enough chemicals to sanitize everything good?
Kind of got a connection at the other end of the road from right. That's what.
You know, Mr. Everett, I grow vegetables, and we spend a lot of money just to make sure food is safe for the consumer. And I think that's very important. And in our industry, it's not always fair when there's people that are not having to go through those same protocol and procedures and standards, because they are risking my livelihood and my family's livelihood when they don't practice the same stuff. So appreciate you bringing that comment.
One more thing. On Department of Ag, we have new leadership in Department of Ag, and I'll make my brownie points here.
You got an inspection coming up. That's what y'all do.
Well, they inspect us at least 4 times a year.
I'm not hugging you.
I know you're not. But they work to make things better for the farmer and the consumer. And we have an ally in the Department of Ag. They don't work just to put out regulations to make folks jump through hoops. They work to enforce regulations that benefit the farmer in the end because he produces a better product, and the consumer because they get the consumer product that is more safe.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Mr. Evans, if an individual wishes to purchase and consume raw milk, clearly aware of the dangers that it provides, do you feel as if they should have the right to purchase it?
My personal opinion would be no, because I consumed raw milk first few years of my life. We quit consuming it when I learned more about the risk. But that person may be buying it for an infant. And what if that infant gets sick? That infant didn't make the decision. The parent made that decision. So the infant didn't have the pro-choice.
All right, thank you. Excuse me, Kenneth Murphy. Mr. Ralph Adamson, Mr. Bud Butcher, and Commissioner Black after him.
Kenneth Murphy. I'm from Meriwether County. I'm a dairy farmer, quite small compared to Mr. Williams. I think he milks 2,000 or 3,000. I milk to maybe 200 at the most of any time of the year. I am against this bill. I feel that there's a high risk of consuming raw milk. We do not drink our milk at farm, and our quality results is good. I just think there's a high risk of drinking raw milk. I want to answer the question that you just asked him about. If a mentally ill person comes into a store and wants to buy a bullet to kill himself, would you sell it to him? Yes. Okay. When you're consuming raw milk, you're playing Russian roulette. And every time the farmer does something wrong, it creates a high bacteria. You're putting a bullet in that gun, pull the trigger. Consumer don't handle it right, you put another bullet in it, pulling the trigger. So after a while, somebody's going to get sick from drinking it because it's too high of a risk. I'm against it as written. I appreciate Ms. Peeler coming in. She had some good ideas, but under the way the bill is written, I'm totally against it.
Anybody got any questions? Winter?
If the same person came in and wanted to buy a bullet, would you sell it to him?
Not if he told me he was going to use a bullet to kill himself.
Margaret?
I just wanted to ask if you would speak to, I'm a little confused because the folks for raw milk are opposed to the bill, and you're a dairy farmer, you're opposed to the bill.
That's
So I'm trying to figure out how would you support the bill? How would it have to be written for you?
Number one, I wouldn't. I'm totally against drinking raw milk. But if those people want to drink it, it ought to be under high regulations, even more so than my grade A dairy today, because I'm taking it on and getting it pasteurized to help the mistakes that have been made along. And I don't care who you are. You do. They say the little farmer's doing the correct things, but someday he's not going to feel good, going to be in a hurry, not going to sanitize something completely. So human error and equipment error, sooner or later is going to catch up.
And can I just ask one more question? It may not be that, maybe to you, Mr. Chairman. Are we talking about just dairy milk? Or are we talking about any kind of goat milk? Any kind of raw milk?
The general consensus, I think, and Scott may want to chime in, is that we're talking about cow milk, but you in the goat business, so.
I mean, I'm serious. Are we just talking about dairy?
The bill as it's written is dairy.
So somebody, okay, I'm confused.
And Gary, let me ask you a question. Can you sell goat milk in Georgia raw? I don't know. Not for human. Okay, Doc. I didn't even see Dr. Cobb back there. Okay. All right, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Mr. Ralph Adamson.
I'm Ralph Adamson. I'm from Barstow, Georgia, Lamar County. I've just recently retired dairy farmer. I've dairy farmed for 40 years, third generation. And I drank raw milk all my life. My dad did, my grandfather did. Until about 30 years ago, and something tragic happened. My 9-year-old son had chicken pox at the time, and I was feeding him raw milk from my herd. And I took pride in feeding me, myself, and my family, because I knew my milk was clean. I thought I did a better job than anybody in the state, producing high-quality, clean milk. Never had any trouble with inspections. But he came down with salmonella, and it was tragic. We didn't know what was wrong to start with. Finally, the doctor sent him up here to Scottish Rite, and I was up here for 7 days. I'm sorry I've got emotional. It's 30 years ago, but I almost lost my only son, and it hits. He was skinny already, but after 10 days of that, he lost 20 pounds with nothing but skin and bones. And here I am. I'm up here in the hospital with this kid, and your loved one, you know. And apologize again for getting emotional. But every day I'd look at that kid, and here I am, a Georgia graduate from the University of Georgia. And I kept remembering what Professor Henderson told us the first day in Dairy 3. Did you take Dairy 3 at Georgia? Talking about the things that are in raw milk. You know, milk is the best. It's nature's most perfect food, but it's also the most perfect food for bacteria. It's one of the best medium to grow bacteria in the bacteria layer and micro lab. They use agar milk. It's the best bacteria, the best medium for bacteria of any kind. And I keep myself 1,000 times every day up to the hospital. It was a miracle that he lived. The doctors didn't think he would start with, because we'd gotten him to Scottish Rite too late. But he was there 7 days. But I thought how stupid I am. Here I am, an educated person, feeding my kids something that was a risk. There was no excuse for it. It wasn't only dumb, it's stupid. And I recently read from, CDC. And they say that 99.9% of the people that get sick from E. coli, salmonella, and so forth, they never report it. Of course, the ones that get reported are the ones that die or are seriously ill. I doubt if my son was statistics in this, they're talking about statistics of how many people get sick on raw milk. But I've been a dairyman all my life, and I've looked up the old cow. The old dairy cow is a wonderful animal. She's a wonderful animal. But we get the milk from down here, but she poops from up here. And I don't care how clean you got this animal, and when she's on grass, that poop gets pretty loose. It splatters. It'll splatter from here to that wall over there. And you get this machine on this cow, and it splatters, and this teat cup is sucking on this cow's teat. And if it splatters on top of that teacup, it sucks it. It can actually suck it in. And we milk in a very clean environment, but it's not sterile. And a cow, when she poops anytime it just comes out. It don't matter whether she's laying down, or you milking, or she's walking. It doesn't even. It just it falls out. That's part. And when that cow comes in the barn, she's got fecal matter on her udder, and we clean it off. We wash it. We sanitize it. We dip the cow's teats. And part of the protocol is that you should squirt 1 squirt out of each quarter of milk. And see, the end of the teat has a sphincter muscle to keep the milk from falling out. And you girls, glands are different from a cow's gland. A cow only has 1 gland for each quarter. So the opening is big, and it has a sphincter muscle. And it has crevices in that sphincter muscle. So it's places for foreign matter to be. And taking that 1 squirt out removes a lot of that foreign matter, but it doesn't sterilize it. I mean, it's not a sterile environment. So you can do everything right. Like Mr. Murphy says, you can make a mistake, but even if you do everything right, there's a possible. Coliform bacteria is common in milk. It's accepted because just about. In fact, I was talking to Lynn Cagle. Had Cagle Dairy up, and they started pasteurizing milk to feed the baby calves. And that's a protocol now. And most of them use powdered milk, and it's cooked just about. Powdered milk is. But the recommended protocol now for baby calves is pasteurized milk for baby calves. And they find that the survival rate is so much greater because diarrhea is a problem with baby calves. But Lynn told me that he thought he'd just sample his milk samples that he was feeding the calves to see what was in it. And he said 75% of the samples he took showed positive for salmonella. And then when he went and started to pasteurize his milk that he fed the baby calves, the survival rate of the baby calves really increased. And if you know the Cagle Dairy, they were real clean. They were spotless up there. But I could talk on and on and on. But I guess I need to stop right here. But I don't know y'all heard enough. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to.
Dale, you pretty clear on things?
You don't.
When did pasteurization start?
Well, my grandfather delivered milk in Atlanta, raw. In fact, he started back when we had grade B dairies. In fact, he started during the Depression, and he was about to starve to death. But he had four milk cows. He started producing raw milk. And in fact, they didn't even have a paved he had a shed. He milked cows, 4 cows in a shed. And of course, back then you could sell grade B dairy if it was buttermilk or cheese and stuff like that. And then he increased. He had about 50 cows.
What year was it?
45, I think.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I'm just curious, from the other dairy farmers, is that typical for you? You pasteurize your milk for your baby cows? I've just never heard of that. It seems unnatural. Really?
All right, thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
Bud Butcher and then Commissioner Black. And I'd like to give Scott a couple of minutes at the end before we have to leave this room. Mr. Bud?
Good morning.
All right,
My
yes,
name
sir.
is Bud Butcher. I'm from Coweta County, and I am a dairyman. I'm somewhere in between Miss Peeler and Mr. Williams as far as cow numbers. And let me say, I don't think this should be an issue between big and small. This is a safety issue. This is about what's best for the people that buy the milk and drink it. And I'm not real sure that putting a label on it is going to really do it, because sometimes people pick it up and they don't really look at the label. Milk is inspected for a reason. On our farm we have strict requirements we have to meet to produce grade A milk, and these people that are milking out in the shed or wherever they may be doing that don't have to meet that. And you know, we have really strong recommendations about cooking meat and cooking poultry to kill whatever bacteria may be in there. And basically pasteurized milk does the same thing. It cooks it for a short period to kill that bacteria that may be present. And you know, the lady that was up here earlier that got a chance to meet the commissioner made the comment, well, if I buy a chicken and I get sick, I go back to where that chicken came from and look. Well, what would have happened if she died and she didn't get to go back? So I think that's the main concern, and you know, I'm going to be very brief because I think, you know, it's been basically talked plenty, but you know, it is a safety issue. So we need to keep that in mind, and we also need to remember when somebody gets sick and dies, it's a tragedy, but to everybody else it's just a statistic, if I can get that word out. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Pleasure to be here. You promised yesterday, Mr. Chairman, this was going to be a vigorous and lively debate. I don't think anybody's been disappointed. So it's been good visit. Let me begin by saying I do, certainly we don't take differences of opinion personally, but I'm happy, and I hope this committee trusts your department. And if there's anybody in this room that doesn't trust the department, obviously I've got some ambassadorial work to do. We may not agree on anything, on something, but when the issue of trust is addressed, I surely want to be the first to help correct that. And my pledge to anyone in this room is happy to visit about that issue of trust, because I want to make sure that's absolutely upheld. We take our job very seriously, and you know, in what I always call the black books, of those official codes of Georgia, where y'all give us laws that you expect us to enforce and uphold. You're the lawmaking body, and the governor will have to sign something in order for it to be law. And once that happens, you give us a responsibility. And part of that responsibility is in public health. Part of it is in a significant part of what we do is about food safety. So we take those roles very, very seriously. But you know, when it's been my experience to be around this Capitol, and many of you I've known for a long time, I don't think there's it doesn't make any difference which side of an issue you're on, or where you're from, or rural or urban, or what, you know, which side you may be on. I think most everybody in this building wants to make sure before they make a decision they have the best available information, and they want it to be science-based. Now, we can debate science, I recognize that, but the issue that I would bring to your attention here is that first of all, we're not in agreement with the bill, and we say that respectfully. But it's when you look at there's not any body of science in the United States. American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Food and Drug Officials, the Centers for Disease Control, the Food and Drug Administration. There's not any body of science that says this is a good idea. And so I would leave that for your consideration. Now, I'll be the first to say, I know that you got some testimony that was sent in yesterday from the Food and Drug Administration, and we did not request that. That came as a surprise to me about 6 o'clock last night, because they copied me on the email. But I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not going to be always the one that's going to lean on them on every issue. It's not that that's high and exalted. I don't believe that the federal government is necessarily I think they should have primacy on some issues that go across commercial ventures across the nation. But I do not believe that they are supreme, because I believe we in the states have some of that expertise on the ground. And one of the areas, just to show you how we can have a difference of opinion even with who provides testimony to you, I can promise you this department's fighting just as hard as possible on the produce rule. And 2 members of your committee know that, and I will continue to do so, because in that juncture they are wrong. But I have to tell you, there's, from the scientific sightings in their testimony, I believe they're right in what they provided to you yesterday. Now, where I differ from what little thing that they've said, I believe what you do at your own house is that's okay. If you have whatever you want to do at home, Mr. Chairman, that's your business. What I have 6-wheel Polaris that I go check my cows on. It has a seat belt on it. I don't think, and I might ought to wear a helmet, but I don't think the state of Georgia needs to tell me to do that. I'm at home. But when it comes to these other things, when it is more in the public arena, that's where you charge us to do our job, and we'll do so effectively and efficiently, and hopefully build some trust back where we've got some work to do. But we may not agree, but we're here to serve, and we'll serve at the pleasure of this committee. But I'm grateful that you gave us a chance to make these comments. Will tell you, our state veterinarian and our head of food safety are both here. Any of the committee members have questions regarding the technical side of that now or afterwards, or we can serve you during the day. Just let us know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
The question is, though, is this. This is my biggest concern with the bill. That is, if someone gets sick from raw milk, you differentiate between raw milk and the other part of the industry that has an adverse impact on the industry. That's my concern. However, my observation is that if they can do it in South Carolina, then just maybe we ought to be able to find some kind of way to come up with something that we can do in Georgia.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Dukes, my friend, and thank you for your kind comments, and we'll work to uphold that. First, on the side of, let's talk about South Carolina first. When I've been in this building a long time, and you have too, and what I've been tasked today is to comment on the piece of legislation before us, and I've made comments relative to that. If there are other proposals, the department would be happy to talk with members as that goes forward. And
What are they doing in South Carolina that makes it good South Carolina?
well, I think there's a very pretty heavily regulated, and if you're going to go on the farm, and how many more inspectors or how much more equipment, there's some considerations. I don't know what their fiscal. We can find that out for you. California passed a bill, I think, a couple of years, and I may be off. It's recently. Let's call it recently, and it's established a pretty rigorous public health set of regulations that were pretty tough, but those things do demand resources that would have to be considered. Now, with respect to the marketing, let me answer this way: when there is when the news media reports H1N1 outbreak, and we're about to, there's no hog producers in the room, I don't think, so normally that would be swine flu, I think. Our office gets calls wanting to know if consumer needs to throw out the frozen pork chops in their freezer, wanting to know if the pork chops are safe. And so there is a lot of consumer education. Now, it's probably not anybody in this room, but it is out there. there's a lot of misinformation with respect, just that general communication. So when something happens, there's a perspective that trails that, and it would, I believe, have some potential impact on folks. Many of you have been in a vehicle with us at some time and gone to farms of this state, and we have the best farmers in this nation, and they don't want anything to upset that marketplace. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Just very quickly, I just want to thank you, Commissioner Black, for running a good department. I appreciate what you do and what the department does. And to my longtime friend Everett Williams and his operation over in Morgan County does a very fine job. I grew up on a dairy farm. I know how difficult it is. I appreciate folks like Everett Williams for keeping our milk supply safe. Thank you, sir. Especially appreciate you, Commissioner Black.
While Scott's coming back, I want to encourage everybody in here. If you don't know your senator and your representative, that's y'all's conduit to get stuff done. On either side of this issue or either side of any other issue, get to know your rep and your senator, because everybody's got one. I like to know something. Everybody's got one.
Thank you, and thank you for everybody who came out today to express your opinions on both sides of the issue. I appreciate it. I think this is what's great about our process and the openness of government in Georgia, and I applaud everybody that participated today. I heard some emotional stories, and I heard some good science, and I heard some opinions, and I think it's all fantastic, first and foremost. And thank you for the committee for bringing this very important food freedom issue. I do appreciate that as well. I want to address some of the issues that were brought up. California, Arkansas, South Carolina, all allow the sales of raw milk to the consumer through various methods. And also, you see the map there. 10 million people a day drink raw milk in the country, and we're not dealing with outbreaks of foodborne illness as a result of raw milk on a regular basis. You heard one of the folks here testify 0.0045% chance of getting sick. I understand the fear, but at a certain point, we have to trust the consumer to make the right decisions for themselves. That's a theme that I've tried to lay out here, and that's basically the foundation of why we're bringing this bill. If there is concern or fear around losing the current ability to buy milk for pets, my concern there is that we continue to leave a stigma around raw milk sales, which in fact would limit the availability to a wider market of people that would enjoy the benefits or flavor of that particular product. I understand that there's risk, but again, as I outlined in my original testimony, there is risk in every food that you eat. People didn't stop eating tuna in 1963. They didn't stop eating green onions. They didn't stop eating peanuts in Georgia. We still have viable markets for these products. And of the 7 pages of foodborne illnesses that I provided to you, people still eat every single one and consume every single one of those products. So that being said, my question left to you guys is, why can't we do it in California? Representative Dukes made a great point. Why can't we do it in South Carolina? Why can't we do it in California? Why can't it be done in Arkansas? Why can't we be free to make our own food choices in Georgia? Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Thank you. This has been very, very interesting. Maybe someone can tell me the diseases that we're talking about that could possibly be in the milk. Once someone drinks it and they become sick, are they then contagious to other people? Or is it just from the milk?
It's just from the milk.
Okay. Number 2, in follow-up, one case, and I realize, we haven't had a lot, the paperwork says there have been some from drinking the raw milk. It's good to say an individual person can make that decision. The consequences today, we're talking about health care and the cost of health care. That cost is going to be spread among everybody, even if you have coverage, if you have Medicaid, whatever you have. Is this worth the risk? Again, I'm free market.
Right.
Everybody should be able to buy and do what they want. But is the risk worth it?
I believe it is, because if you look at, again, the full list of what, and that's just a partial list going back to 1963 of all the foodborne illnesses that I could find, or outbreaks. And when you compare that to the fact that there are 10 million people today in America who are drinking raw milk on a daily basis, has that hurt milk production? I mean, California was the home of the Got Milk campaign. Has that impacted their sales? I don't believe it has. I believe it is worth the risk.
Sam?
Yeah, there have been issues with food products, and yes, people still do eat them, but you know who suffered in those situations?
I think I know where you're going, yes, sir.
The producer that makes and grows that product has suffered. So just want to make light of it.
I appreciate the comment.
When she's talking about dump milk, she's talking about what don't go in the tank. All right, Ellis, one more and we got to go.
I want to expand on what Sam brought up to you about the price that consumers paid and the producers paid. In each one of those cases, there was a drastic depression in the market, a drop off in sales, and it took, I know in the peanut situation, it took over 2 years for the market to rebound from that. There were millions of dollars that was lost because of that.
Tomatoes too.
Tomatoes also. And so, and you made a big issue out of trusting the consumer to use their judgment. Well, I don't have any problem about trusting the consumer to judge what they eat, but I do have a problem trusting them to be able to handle the response to the media coverage of these and their reactions to it. Because the consumers are the ones that were frightened in these situations and backed away from the tomatoes, peanuts, lettuce, when it comes to find out that was from even outside the country. And so, in other words, the markets are real and the markets are funny.
I understand that, Representative Black, and I appreciate the comment. I guess I fall back on the question, and I haven't heard the answer to this, and I'm willing to explore this with you and any other member of the committee. Why can't it be done in South Carolina and California safely, and why can't we have those choices here in Georgia?
First off, nobody has accessed the risk that they're taking in South Carolina to their market and to our market as well.
This thing's kind of a rolling work in progress right now anyhow, and we can get into all that. This ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
Excuse me for interrupting, but can I make one comment?
Real quick.
In all the handouts I had, there was a case study on the peanut fiasco and the tomato and how it affected the producers. And please not forget, all of us that are farmers, we're consumers as well. We're concerned about, ourselves and the consuming public.
Thank you, sir. This ain't got anything to do with this bill. A lot of y'all on both sides of the issue aren't used to dealing with all of us. This is your capital, this is your building, and we are y'all's legislature. Y'all are all our bosses. Why are you here? Take a little time, walk around and look, and we fixing to go in session in 30 minutes. Go right next door here to the gallery and watch how sausage is made, and then you'll figure out how we have to do all this kind of stuff, and it takes forever to get it done. But thank y'all again for coming and taking time out of y'all schedule and your businesses and all to come. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.